human rights are indivisible for retail, including economic rights and the right to development. Each person has the right to participate and contribute to the realization of economic, social, cultural, and political development. And to enjoy this development, these are indivisible rights and guaranteed for all human beings. Economic sanctions are arousing the concern of humanitarian organizations because of their role in undermining human rights. The United States, ignoring Article 32 of the Declaration of the United Nations General Assembly in its Resolution 3281, by which every state was prevented from using economic or political measures or any other type of measures or encouraging the use to force another state to be subordinate to it in exercising its sovereign rights. US imposed an economic embargo against Sudan following the announcement of Sharia laws in June 1983, which restricted the movement of money, trade, and US investment in Sudan. Because of these measures and unilateral forcible legislations contrary to international humanitarian law and principles governing peaceful relationships among states, Sudan lost billions of dollars in direct and indirect ways. For years, we are suffering because we are unable to offer our children something, especially those with disabilities. We don't find wheelchairs for them, or earphones, or a daily meals item, because the medication is not found and is expensive. We used to receive them as an aid across organizations, and organizations were banned. Did the ban affect the government? No. It's we, our children, the elderly, and all persons in need of assistance from abroad. In previous periods, before being strangled by banning all foreign organizations' aid, our children found treatment, transportation, and utilities. Whether it's a wheelchair for a child or mass transportation, we got all this stuff from organizations that were helping us. There are handicapped people in their homes. When I go to them, I cry seeing their wretched position with their parents who are unable to do anything. The state is not the cause, but the US embargo. The US administration used the policy of pressing international financial institutions in the implementation of the economic embargo that prevented banks from dealing with the Sudanese banks in a frank aggression on the human rights of the Sudanese citizen. The loss of banking system in Sudan from the year 1997 to 2014 is estimated by about $9 billion, resulting in a failure to meet financial obligations towards the donor international institutions, which in turn led to the deterioration of relations between Sudan and these institutions and to the difficulty of finding short-term loans to finance the government procurements, including medicines. Sudanese banks also stumbled in fulfilling their obligations to the letters of credit and financial security and lost much of their capital, their profits and customers, which resulted in some bankruptcies and closure of some and the merging of others. Subsequently, the black market recovered and speculations in hard currency, which widely jumped in price, and the transfers of Sudanese working abroad decreased of about $3 billion a year to less than $100 million, which caused the banking system to lose one of the most important sources of hard currency.
أنا عاملة داود عبد النبي وزوجي النذير فضل النبي كان سواق بيسايق في عربات أبل ست كباري فجأة حصل له شل الجاته جلطة ورقد في البيت.
My husband Nadir Fadl Mula was a truck driver for the company at Bersi. He suffered a stroke which prevented him from work for 2.5 years.
سكن موضوع مدرسة ما قاعدين يقروا.
I have 10 children. We suffer from the problem of housing and school fees. My daughter has narrow arteries and a heart valve problem. I'm unable to continue treatment and my medication cost. I just go back to work in the laundry. My husband can't find treatment from anywhere. His leg is swollen a week ago and he's injured, and I don't have even the taxi fee to get him to the health center. Sudanese industry was affected negatively, especially industries with American and European origin. Some factories stopped completely on production because its inability to import spare parts from abroad. Other factories also stopped because due to their reliance on Western software. Many workers were laid off and lost their jobs. The contribution of industry in national income retracted to 8.4%. The agriculture sector was also affected due to the high prices of agriculture inputs as a result of the depreciation of the Sudanese pound on one hand, and because of the purchase of inputs through intermediates from the black market on the other, which resulted in increased cost and the inability to fill the shortage of Western technology in the field of agriculture and irrigation. The United States imports gum arabic from Sudan needed by its companies. It was excluded from the ban to their advantage. The US embargo caused continuous rise in the price of medicines because of import difficulties, especially life-saving medicine, medical equipment, and international cooperation in the field of training and the transfer of modern technology. The ban deprived the Sudan also from providing advanced assistive devices in the disability field at a time when the number of persons with disabilities exceeded 1,800,000 people. The proportion of disabled people who receive their education services was estimated at 1.6%.
السماعات لما احنا نجيبها ونشتريها ونجيبها الحمد ما عندنا، فكانت المنظمات اللي بتجيب لنا السماعات من خلال متبرعين ومقدمين خدمات والمنظمة دي.
When we were unable to purchase these headphones, these organizations provided us with them through donors. The US embargo stopped providing us with earphones. The child Safiddin needs a device for his left and right legs, and it's expensive. His hands are posed in this way. He's sitting on a chair of cerebral palsy. This chair was designed by us, and it is unhelpful because the specialized chairs for cerebral palsy have all the possibilities that make the child sit with his hands and legs properly posed. But where do we get it from? The US ban has affected our children. What is the guilt of these children?
والحظر الامريكي حظر علينا انه نعالج عيالنا، يعني ذنبهم شنو يا جماعه المعاقين ديل الاطفال ديل.
The US embargo also caused heavy losses to the livestock sector due to the inability to import veterinary equipment and vaccines against epidemic diseases and the lack of cooperation in the areas of training and funding. The United States ignored the Declaration of Principles adopted by the World Summit of the Information Society held in Geneva in December 2003. The ban caused the prevention of Sudan from importing much of modern communications technologies. The embargo also caused a decline in opportunities for scholarships abroad, besides the inability of the educational institutions to import equipment and educational laboratories such as chemistry laboratories and engineering workshops, which adversely affected the educational process and its different levels. In turn, the transportation sector was influenced. The railway failed to provide spare parts. 83% of trains stopped operating in most important animal and agriculture production lines. The total deficit in transport capacity reached to 80%, which in turn influenced economic development as well as the sector of road, river, and sea transport. The biggest humanitarian violations caused by this embargo was the depriving of dozens of the right to life in more than a dozen aircraft accidents, one of the main reasons of which was the inability of airlines to obtain spare parts and regular maintenance work, as it was one of the reasons of the erosion of the Sudanese Airways company Sudanair.
ثلاثة من مولدته ولدته بيعاني من نقص الأكسجين مما أثر في حياته.
The mother of the child, Muhammad al-Fatih Muhammad al-Hassan, since his birth, he is suffering from a lack of oxygen and hypoxia. Several operations were conducted here in Sudan, but were not successful. Muhammad is in need of a set of operations so that he can stand on his feet and live a normal life. Because of pregnancy, I was affected with cartilage and prevented from carrying him. But am I the only one that carries and disposes him? It's not our fault. If the ban has got political reasons, Muhammad and I are not responsible. We have deprived ourselves even from basic things for life for the sake of Muhammad. His brothers suffer because everything goes for his treatment. He is in need of 6 surgeries and he is now 15 years old and cannot work or qualify to do anything. All of this is because of the US embargo. What is my sin and the sin of Muhammad? These are political issues that should not affect mothers and children. What is our sin? I want to know.
وأنا ذنبي شنو ومحمد ذنبه شنو؟ دي كل حاجات سياسية ما المفروض تأثر ولا على الأمهات ولا على الأبناء. يعني إحنا ذنبنا شنو؟ عاوزين نعرف.
Everyone has a right for acquiring the highest hygienic level attainable and an adequate standard of living for himself and his family, providing him with adequate food, clothing and shelter. But the economic ban on Sudan widely undermined the humanitarian rights of people with disabilities, women and children, and caused the loss of many families to access to employment, affordable food, housing and water, and other basic necessities. Poverty rate in the country reached over 46.8%, making this US embargo on Sudan a kind of ruthless collective punishment.
I'm
Fatma Joda, the mother of the child Al-Wasila. I have come from Western Darfur State. What is my sin concerning the US embargo? We have no house to live in and no constant work for making our living. My child needs to be treated and needs what can make him walk. He's in need of clothes. We are in dire need of that. Allah knows. The conscience of the world should scream in the face of this injustice undergone by the poor citizen, and the US administration is responsible for the human rights that is still violating in Sudan.